If you're anything like me, you catch yourself as a mature woman, an older woman, a woman over 50, 60, and beyond, sometimes comparing ourselves because, our moms didn't have social media. And here we are, we're at this stage of life, and we open up our Instagram or Facebook and we see women that are much younger. And that's fine. There's not a jealousy there, but perhaps there's a comparison where we unfairly compare ourselves to somebody 30 or 40 years younger. And there can be this stigma with aging for women that's just not there for men. There's a lot of pressure to get rid of the wrinkles, get rid of the jowls, maybe do fillers and all kinds of things. And we're not knocking that. I've done Botox, I've done fillers. I'll be totally transparent here. I've tried many different things. But what if there were some different options? And this is really what we're going to explore today. Today, I have with me Dr. Cathy Goldstein, AP. She's leading a quiet but powerful revolution in beauty, aging, and women's health. Cathy is a licensed acupuncture physician with 38 plus years of clinical experience, and she's the creator of the True Energy Natural Facelift System. She's pioneering a new field that she calls natural aesthetics. It's a synthesis of fascia, which we have fascia really running throughout our entire body, lymphatic flow, facial expression, frequency medicine, and quantum biology. Excited about the quantum biology, all designed to help women look younger and feel more emotionally and neurologically alive without the chemicals or the surgery. Cathy has been featured in Vogue, Philadelphia Magazine, and Jefferson Medical School. Cathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Carol. I'm really looking forward to chatting and unpacking all this because your message is exactly aligned with mine as far as like that, making global changes on perception of age and menopause for women. I so agree with you. So I'm really excited to be able to chat with you, with your audience.
I am too. I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm going to be 64 in August. And the 60s is like a different decade, even from the 50s. In the 50s, it's funny, you feel like you have one foot still in your 40s, like a foot in
Yeah.
each decade. And now in my 60s, I'm like, what am I in the land of the lost? Like, what is what is happening
Right, right,
here?
right. Does that make me 60, 70? Because I'm 65 this year. And it's like, whoa, that's very, very close to that 70 mark, isn't it?
Yeah, there's just this mindset shift where we maybe begin to tire of that pressure to constantly look
Mm,
younger. I know I've tired of it a little bit, like trying to keep up this, I don't want to say a facade because it's not a facade, but just really trying to look flawless almost, especially if you are on camera a lot, you are on video, you're on social media. There's a lot of pressure, and I'm in the fitness community, and there's a lot of pressure to look a certain way with our bodies, with our faces. So this is such a great conversation. Now, we all have a backstory, and you kind of have two backstories in a sense, with your first happening in your teens. And it's my understanding you had a near death battle with Crohn's disease. How,
mhm,
how did that kind of just change the trajectory of your
mm.
viewpoints, your life, your philosophy?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I certainly needed the sledgehammer to make that change. That's for sure. I actually was finishing some pre med courses and planning on going into the medical field in that very Western allopathic way. And when I got sick with Crohn's disease, and I found that I was not resolving issues with, medication, and I'm very resistant to, drugs and medication. And I just kept going down and down and down to the point where I ended up in the emergency room at 26 on my birthday in an immediate emergency surgery. It was quite a path. It was quite a path because I saved my life. Holistic, or I'm sorry, allopathic medicine saved my life. Surgery saved my life. I would have perforated through my intestines and I would have died. So, but I wasn't, even after that surgery, I ended up in the hospital for 3 months and I almost died several times in that time frame. And what it really came down to is that emergency medicine is what our allopathic medicine is, but what do we do to actually heal and get better? And acupuncture was the answer for me. I went to acupuncture school after that, totally changed from Western medicine to Eastern medicine, and have never looked back. And of course, my practice was packed full of really, really sick autoimmune, infectious disease, all of that really hard to treat things. So my practice became very packed with that type of a patient. And so I ended up going in a few different directions with my practice, one of them being energy medicine for sure, because everybody talks about energy medicine as being something like of the future, that whole scan your body and find the problems. And that seems like way out there, but we have that technology now. Energy medicine is now, not the future. We're in that future. So I really leaned heavy into not only energy medicine for diagnostics, but actually for treating as well, to help bring up that vibrational frequency of a healthy cells, that have a healthy immune system, a healthy meridian for those acupuncture pathways, to really get the person, the body, that being, to be able to live their best possible life in, with what they had been originally given as a, go home and deal with it kind of concept. So, and then very, very strong into neuroemotional techniques and intelligence and how the brain affects the body, that the issues are really in the tissues. Our emotions are more physiologically based rather than like spiritually heart based. So that I took a deep dive into. And then really put everything together, and had in my practice, I have an integration room where I have people go in and do biophoton frequencies and light frequencies, sound frequencies, crystal frequencies. So everything's about energy in that healing process.
Interesting. So you had this big shift, this big change with this life-threatening disease. For people who don't know, Crohn's, is an autoimmune disease, really can be very, very serious and life-threatening. But then you had kind of another, for lack of a better word, epitome in your late 80s. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. Yes, that was a really interesting moment because, like I was talking about, how deep I was into treating people who were really, really sick and their last resort. And at 49, which was a while ago, I'm 65 this year, so that was quite some time ago. And I found myself visiting a friend. I'm from the East Coast. He's in California. And as he was walking down the hallway in his clinic, I stood up to meet him, and I had glanced in the mirror to my right and I caught my image unexpectedly. You know how that happens and you actually kind of
Yeah.
get a really fresh, right? A very fresh perspective of what other people see when they look at you, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, when did that happen? And why does this not match how I feel? I was living a very practice what I preach, right? Eating organic, exercising, getting treatments, and living a really healthy lifestyle. So I was really, really taken aback when I had that epiphany, that catch of myself, and thinking, why? What am I missing? What's going on? Like, where's the disconnect here? And that was hugely transformational because I went back and I really kind of reevaluated what is this largest organ doing? What is shows up on our face? Why does that happen? What am I missing? Right? So the redirect for me in my top priorities in practice were toxins, whether they're physical toxins or emotional toxins. And then there was a third, and the third was a desperate need for a natural facelift system, so to speak, a natural system that actually addresses what's going on those underlying layers or levels in the face that brings those lines so predominantly, especially for stress and when we're under stress and with our history and our, whatever our story is in our life
It's
shows up.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how that shows up. I began seeing a therapist. I've talked to my listeners a lot about this, my community. Oh, I was about 54, and she's helped me tremendously. And we were unpacking a lot of past trauma, things I'd pushed to the back. Well, like many women, your kids begin to leave the nest. They're going off, they're starting their lives, and all of a sudden you have this excess time and things that maybe you hadn't thought about. You've been too busy. You've been in the throes of raising kids and a family. All of a sudden, they're there in your face. So, long story short, entered therapy to kind of unpack some of these things.
Sure.
And it was interesting to look at photos because when
Mm,
I was in the middle of really going through some of the hardest work with her, I would look at those photos and it was showing on my face. My face looked, I wouldn't say more wrinkled, but there was a hardness. There was
mhm.
definitely a
Intensity.
hardness. Yes. And then there was a softness. Once we kind of worked through some things, I'm like, oh, that's a more, a softer look. And I even showed my therapist at one point. I said, do you see the difference in these photos? Because it really struck me that whatever I was going through was playing out on my facial expression.
Yeah. Very insightful. Yeah. Very insightful, Carol.
It just really it made me think of things differently. So I'm assuming that that is something that you feel we should address.
Well, first, the reasons why our face is the history of our life, and it shows so predominantly, especially the stressors, because the happy and joyful really just kind of give us a soft, youthful look. But what we really look at when we look in the mirror, what we really look at when we judge ourselves or when we compare ourselves, are the sagging jaw lines, the lines around the mouth, the lines from the nose to the mouth, the forehead lines, the intensity lines around our eyes and between our eyes, and the emotions that we go through. Um, and our facial expressions are really get stuck on our face. And the reason why is because the muscles of the body are very different. The muscles of the body have, as you well know, being the fitness expert, have extension and contraction, right? Our facial muscles don't attach joints from bone to bone. Our facial muscles are skin to muscle or bone to muscle, but skin to muscle mostly. And so what happens is that when we make or have emotions, feelings, perpetual expressions, they get stuck on the face. So when we have disappointments in life and we're frowning a lot, we really get that tightness around our mouth and from our mouth down to like the corners of our mouth down to our chin. And those areas get dragged down and tightened up. And when you think about, or actually even have it pointed out, that the lines of aging are not just the wrinkles and the sagging. The lines in aging have to do with the muscles underneath that actually tighten and pull and drag the muscles and the skin around on our face. So when we have facial expressions that are tight around our mouth, that's where the chin curls up close to the upper lip or the lower lip, right? I'll say the witch's chin because we're on audio, right? The witch's chin. I'm using quotes, right? um, quotes. That's from muscles that are contracted. So now our area between our lip and our chin becomes shorter. And then what happens with the neck, because we're holding up this bowling ball and a lot of our tension in our scalene muscles and in our shoulders, we start really contracting the muscles of the neck as well and get the creping, sagging lines on our neck. And that's the same thing that those muscles come up and actually wrap along the side of the jawline so that when those muscles are tight on the neck, they're actually pulling down on those cheeks. So it pulls down the muscles that are the apples that are supposed to be up, on the high point of our cheeks. And then the same thing with the forehead, where as we age, the forehead gets shorter because the lines of stress are across the forehead. And when we are angry or frowning or have intensity and we pull our eyebrows together, you can see that it actually pulls down your eyelid so that it sags onto that upper eyelid. And that's one of women's biggest complaints is the sagging of the
Mm,
eyelids.
yes.
So this is all really looked at in a way that nobody is really looking at that when you're looking at especially an allopathic or Western or a beauty industry mentality, which is that we're not looking at what's the cause of the problem. We're just going to a solution that may not be a solution because it's really going against nature. So it's going with nature and understanding it that really helps us to be able to release those emotions, not just in a way that, like you were talking about, where you can go to a therapist, talk it out, hash it out, unpack it, and gain a softness in your face, but to actually have the tools that can release those muscles that are holding it because that fascia gets twisted. around all of those muscles that are contracted. And we need to actually release those as well. So that's kind of the reason why this all gets stuck on our face and those emotions are painted in a face.
No, it makes sense. For years, I've done different types of treatments to help fascia with muscle aches and pains I've had where the fascia gets tight, say it gets tight, in your legs or in your shoulder, and it can create so many problems. And then it can actually change your movement patterns because you begin moving differently to compensate for the problem of the tightness of the fascia. So I had never thought of it in relationship to our face, our facial expressions. So when we think about kind of, now I'm going to use my little air quotes, reversing the effects, the first thing we do think of is things like Botox and
Yeah.
things like the fillers. Let's start with the Botox because that is doing something different. People mix those two up, but Botox is more of about freezing the face. So you're, making those lines in the forehead. Why is that not maybe the best approach?
Right. Yeah. So, first of all, I definitely would like to say it's for me, there's no judgment and it's about meeting everybody where they are. If you are a human being that has any connection on social media or just even social, you are going to be exposed to our standard of beauty that is telling us that if we're not competing with the 30-year-olds, then as a 50 or 60, then we're on the wrong path. That this is the goal, is to look 30 when we're 50 and 60, 40, 50, 60, 70. And it's really not the goal, because we're losing so much when we do that. One is that we're not 30. So what we bring to the table is way different in the process of our maturity gaining. And I don't say that in a way like, oh, well, it's just a matter of maturity where you just have to accept it. I wouldn't tell someone to use, dial soap, for example. This is really about, using the tools that you have to be able to get the best results you can possibly get. And so, when you're looking at, nature versus synthetic, with the Botox, what happens is that you're freezing, like you said, you're freezing the muscles by stimulating or deadening the nerve that innervate those muscles. And so this is the underlying concern with this process is that because our facial expressions are so key to our emotional intelligence, and I'll talk about what that means, we're actually losing that when we lose the ability to make facial expressions. So what that means is that there's something called mirroring. If you're talking to me about some heartfelt situation that you're upset about, I am going to mirror your expressions, not to show empathy at that point, but I'm mirroring your expressions with a little bit of a micro intensity, because when I move those muscles in that particular way, I'm actually giving my mammalian brain information about how you feel. So there's this path that actually goes from my muscles to my brain, interpretation back to my cognitive or my frontal cortex, that thinking brain, the decision making brain. And now I can empathize with you, where now you're going to not only see that process on a subconscious and conscious level. Now, when I'm connecting with you, I'm connecting with you because because of that emotional intelligence that happens when our brain perceives information that's external to feel a particular way and to understand how someone else feels. And now we're connecting. If I don't have the expressions, then I may not understand exactly how you're feeling. But worse than that, you may not feel like I'm understanding you. When we lose the ability to express ourselves through our facial expressions, which is way more significant than our words, because we register all of these subconscious cues at like 80% of our processing when we're communicating with each other. So when we have I think it's 1 out of 3 people who feel lonely, we have to take that into consideration, that we have a lot of disconnect. And so with that disconnect, you're disconnecting from me and I'm disconnecting from you.
Mm. That's
Does
so
that make sense?
interesting. It makes perfect sense because we are really wired to have these connections. They're important. And now we're being told how important it is not to be isolated and to have social and spiritual connection
Right.
as we get older. And I would agree with that. Loneliness is a very real thing, especially as we age. I'm not sure why that increases so much, but it certainly does. And that sense of isolation. So by freezing the muscles, perhaps we are interfering with some of that connectedness between two people. It's funny, as you were talking, I thought about, because I come from the bodybuilding community. I don't do shows anymore. But what happens when you bodybuild is you take the body fat way down so the muscle shows. And you can imagine what it does to the face to lose
Yes.
all of the body fat. Then you've got your facial expressions you make as you lift
Yeah.
weights.
That aren't so pretty always.
They're not so pretty. And so a lot of us before a comp would go get these little touch ups like, okay, get a
Mm,
little filler, get a little Botox. And I remember once getting Botox that made it difficult. He was trying to address some of the lines down here. It made it difficult for me to do my full smile on stage. Talk about anxiety provoking, because
yeah.
part of how I would place in these competitions was my smile and my eye contact with the judges.
Right.
And when that was gone, I was at a disadvantage.
Right. 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 So that's actually a perfect example of connecting with people without words. Right. It's
Right.
amazing. Amazing. Yeah. And then, so many of us have teens as well. And the importance of moms having facial expressions when they're communicating with their kids, even younger than teens, because kids are learning what those facial expressions mean as they are growing up, because their nervous system doesn't completely develop until actually they're about 21. So the interpretation of emotions and responding appropriately is everything that they learn from their mom and or their parents. And by not having those facial expressions, it actually can be very confusing for kids. There's a really interesting study on that too, if I could bring up that study, because it's just fascinating. They did a study of teens under 3D MRIs, the fMRIs. It's a functional MRI, and they showed the teens photos of faces that were frozen, that were Botox, or even Botox and fillers, because there's a slight distortion as well. So with Botox and fillers, and they showed the teens those photos under the fMRI, and they were registering their brain. In that emotional part of the brain, in the mammalian part of the brain, it actually fired up red as if the teen was experiencing trauma.
Wow.
So my interpretation of that is that, because it was just a research study, they're just saying here's the before and afters, right? My interpretation of that is that if a teen is confused, and teens are highly emotional, right? Because they're trying to figure it out. If a teen can't sort it out, if they can't understand something, then it takes them into a stress mode. So when they're communicating with someone, or they're trying to understand where they land with a particular person, are they happy with them? Do they like them? Do they not like them? Are they angry at them? Anything like that. And they cannot draw an interpretation, it puts them under anxiety and stress. And that fMRI actually showed that stress factor when they were looking at photos of people who were expressionless.
That's
Very
really
interesting.
interesting. Yes. And I think on many different levels too, you've got them looking at our facial expressions, trying to read, trying to interpret, but then you also have how they'll see themselves. I have three kids. They're all adults now, but I was always so conscious of body image and things like that as my girls were in those teen years. It's like, be careful, Carol. Don't give them the wrong message. Don't put that pressure on
Yeah.
them. They already have enough entering this world. And again, we're definitely not saying, demonizing Botox or anything like that. Like I said, I've had it many, many times, very transparent here, but it's just a different way of looking at things and thinking about things, and maybe seeking some other but I do think that aspect is kind of like when our teens see us constantly on a diet. or we're
Mm,
constantly worried about the scale, or there are those subliminal messages that we're sending out
mhm.
just through our behavior that could say in an indirect way to a teen, perhaps I'm not good enough, I need to look better, I need to
Yeah.
have a better body, I need to,
Yeah.
because we are seeing women younger and younger doing a lot of these treatments as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's really 3 positions, if you will, 3 places that people, women are, which is that, for myself, I'm in holistic medicine. It was a little scary for me, the idea, not to say I didn't consider Botox at 49 when I looked in the mirror. And especially after, trying all kinds of creams and lotions and potions and just really not finding what I wanted, not getting the results that I wanted. And so, but there's that position where, I'm absolutely looking for something alternative. And then the middle position, which is I've done Botox on events. I have used Botox, periodically. I would love to have an alternative because I'm not 100% comfortable with it. And then actually really 4 positions. That third is I've been using Botox for years and I would love to not use it, but I'm afraid not to.
Right.
Then the last, of course, is I'm using Botox. I don't care what it does. I love it. I look amazing. I feel amazing. And I'm totally connected to the people, that I'm with. So, but it's that, former 3 categories that I always like to say, especially if someone's been doing Botox for a while, that it is reversible, it is repairable. We can reconnect. And, it's if it's something that people are saying, you know what, like Pamela Anderson and, a lot of the celebrities who are absolutely gorgeous, but definitely had that pressure as well because they're on camera and they're in that position of, the limelight that they're doing, the Botox and the fillers and that for whatever reason they changed their mind, decided that they would spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to dissolve the fillers and going back to nature. So I'm really excited to see that there is the option that, we're not just having all celebrities, everybody does it, you're crazy if you don't, that side of the pressure. Whereas it's like, you know what? Pick what you want, pick what works for you, but know that it's possible to do natural and not just give up on how we age or how we look. I mean, I want to look timeless as I, go into my late 60s, 70s, 80s, use the tools.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know even myself, I've pared back and gone to the absolute minimum with these things
Mm,
because I think we can overdo it, especially the filler. That one is a little deceptive because you can get so used to it that you think you need more and more and more.
that's right. That's
Let's
right.
kind
It's
of
addictive.
unpack. Yeah, let's kind of unpack. Filler is so very different because we lose volume in the face oftentimes.
Yeah. Yeah. That is an interesting one too, because when I was talking about the muscles being dragged around from being tight where they just pull, that there's a misconception that we can't really regain that pop in that apple in those cheeks. Now our face might thin, a little bit from like those baby fat cheeks, right? When we're teens, versus as we get older. But the reality of it is that when we look at that option for natural, what needs to be considered is the energy, the underlying frequency of the cells that are responsible for the activity that gives us that youthful, bright, open look on our face. And the key part about that is integrating energy medicine. I mean, as an acupuncturist, I can tell you, even from my own personal experience, when I was 26 and ended up in the hospital for, 3 months and 2 years of recovery, how I felt when I was 26, 27, getting out of the hospital, I felt like I was 90 years old. I just was so lethargic, so in disrepair, so broken down. But there's recovery, right? So it's the recovery, it's what we do to help regain that youthful energy and the cells that are expressing themselves in that natural way. Right. So
Right.
think of it. Yeah. I just want to, so actually, I think that the kind of bring that home because it's a different kind of concept is that when we're younger, we have a vibrational frequency. Our cells have a specific vibrational frequency. So when we're younger, when we're healthier, and it vibrates like a perfectly tuned piano, right? And then as we age, as we have stress, as we have trauma, we lose that vibration like a piano going out of tune,
Mm.
right? So if we can use that tuning fork as the tool to retune the cells to the frequencies that they need to be to sound amazing, and in this case, look amazing, have those cells perform amazingly, then that's where that parallel draws. That's where the frequency tools really make a difference when we talk about, like, well, what does make the difference? It's using the tools that have energy and frequency that can increase and recalibrate the frequency of a cell to act and look like a younger functioning cell.
No, I'm following along and I'm thinking too of some of the science behind it where, we talk about collagen loss and all of that, but there's so many different things going on, like with the mitochondria at the cellular level. Even things like I remember I was a marathon runner and I was an extreme endurance athlete. So it wasn't uncommon for me to cycle 100 miles, sign up for a marathon, do boot camps, do spin classes,
Yeah,
cardio, cardio, cardio. I look back at the pictures and felt it was aging me in a way, like my face. It was unbelievable, just I think at a cellular level. And then you think of that
absolutely.
oxidative stress, we get more and more, the load gets more. We live in a toxic world.
Yes.
I had a doctor on talking about glutathione, and he says it's
Mm,
not that we have less as we age, it's that we need more and more, and we use up that glutathione on that recovery process. So all of this
right.
was going through my mind as you were talking of
Hmm.
perhaps that playing into how the cells respond, how they bounce back, how much more resilient our skin is at that age.
Exactly, exactly. And I think you bring up, three really key points, which is, getting rid of the toxins because there's so many toxins that really age our face and our skin and our body in general, and then being able to address the underlying tissues that are the muscles and the fascia and the lymphatic system, right, to be repaired. And then the third is to making sure that the nutrients are there. So with my skincare, I very much talk about the nutrients of that because being in holistic medicine, functional medicine is really key. And the concept of functional medicine is that you are giving the body the tools to perform the way it's supposed to. And that's exactly what my philosophy is with skincare. Is it's not about giving the skin collagen. It can't generally utilize that. It's much too big of a molecule. So it's like trying to shove a big molecule into the cell. It's not going to utilize it down into the DNA and the mitochondria, right? So you have to give it nutrients that can be pulled in and utilized within the cell where those nutrients are needed so that your body is encouraged to produce collagen and elastin and repair that inner workings of the cell.
Makes sense. I think of how much money I've spent on collagen powders
Right. Of
over the
course.
years. And just lately, I've gone, you know what? I don't know that they're doing all that much. And the research is just not there. We don't have the research on the collagen powder. So I think addressing it at a deeper level rather than trying to pour these powders in our body,
Mm,
addressing the problem, at that cellular level. So
right.
what alternatives do we have to Botox and fillers and facelifts?
Yeah. So, the that was kind of what I went to work on when I realized that I just wasn't liking skincare that was available. It really wasn't addressing the really underlying issue. Was there are tools out there. There are tools that work on that underlying tissue. I use frequencies in mine, so it has that like extra layer. But the thing is that the fascia is a collagen producing machine. To get to your point on, what does the body need to actually do what it's supposed to do? And if the fascia is congested, it's really hard for it to produce that collagen. And if it is producing the collagen, but the lymphatic system is congested, the lymphatic system is what delivers the collagen to the cells, to the skin. So here, if you're needing to address the fascia and the lymphatic system, and if you're delivering it to the cells, but the cell is toxic, it can't take it in or utilize it. So you have to make the cell healthier and getting rid of the toxins so it can take in the nutrients. So it's this beautiful understanding of that system that can integrate everything to actually have the cell make that beautiful cell that comes to the surface of the skin that has that youthful glow and pop and bounce and that hydrated, moist, dewy look, right? So it's all in there. It just needs the right tools to be able to help it to bring it out.
So if somebody comes to you and they want to, maybe they've done Botox or filler and they're saying, you know what, I really want to try a different approach, where do you start?
Okay. So first of all, I'm always encouraging, because repair is possible. You know that from all of the damage you did to your body when you are really getting your body to perform at the ultimate highest, place where you're doing these marathons, right? There's a lot of damage that happens. So it's very possible to repair the damage. And that's, to the cells. And that's my biggest emphasis is that repair is possible, regeneration is possible, reconnection is possible. So, it's the encouraging part of that. So, when I developed the natural facelift system with the skincare treatment, because it's not just skincare, it's actually treatment. It was intended for people to be able to use that at home. So when I developed it with the protocol, I actually had a third party study with Dr. Pugliese, who was the big, muckety muck, as I like to say, in the industry of high end skincare. And I gave the system to him for 30 days for the trial, the study. And after 15 days, he was like, I have no idea how you're getting these results. These women look like they've had mini facelifts after 15 days. He was thinking it was like the tool or the magnets in the tool. What he didn't know, what he wasn't familiar with, is the frequencies that I imprint into the tools and into a little green bead that's in all of the skincare. And the frequencies are what helps that body to learn how to retune, like the piano. So it retunes so that results are greater than what you're going to anticipate when you're implementing that full system. And then after 30 days, the study actually showed that the cell was producing 25% more collagen in just 30 days, right? So it increased collagen production by 25%. And so I emphasize that because it literally takes 45 days just to begin production of new collagen. This was already a 25% increase in just 30 days. So, it's possible for that cell to actually absorb it, utilize it, and produce what it needs to produce to really create that effect.
So you hit on the time because that was going to be my question because I know a lot of women are thinking, okay, time. And
Mm,
this unpacks another subject here that I think is important. I'll go off down a little rabbit hole here, but I
okay.
had shoulder surgery and a bicep tendon reattachment and the rotator cuff repair. Quite a thing. Still recovering from it. I'm 3 months in, so much better.
Mm,
But
mm,
I've gotten good results because I'm really doing the physical therapy and it's time consuming. I do
yes.
over an hour a day plus see the therapist twice a week. But the results have been like last time I went, my doctor's jaw dropped. Oh, you're already moving your arm that way. Well, I put in the work.
Yes.
And the thing with the Botox and the fillers, it's like, okay, less than 20 minutes or whatever. You're in and out. Maybe you got a couple bruises.
Yeah.
How do you address the time part of this, the commitment part of this?
Yeah. I love that you asked that question because in today's day age and our pace that we run, especially, women who are really in these amazing positions and powering up on their life, because like their kids moved out and now they've got their life back, right? So that they're totally powering up in this amazing way. So time does become important. And I think you make it a really good point when you're talking about your physical therapy, which is that it is important for us to make sure that we are giving time to ourselves and nurturing ourselves with little things like, rituals or, habits, daily regimes that actually help us to pay attention to us and love on ourselves, right? And we don't do that enough. We don't give that enough to ourselves. So a lot of times women do find that doing the True Energy protocol really makes a difference because, for just that nurturing, because it's only 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes once a day. And you're going to wash your face and, moisturize it twice a day, but the protocol itself is only once a day, 7.5 minutes. And what I found people saying is that they sleep better, they feel more relaxed because they're going into that parasympathetic healing and resting mode. So the frequencies that I'm actually imprinting it are helpful for taking people from that sympathetic stress mode to the parasympathetic, and then add consciousness, awareness, breathing, thoughtfulness to actually doing the protocol where we focus on ourselves and love on ourselves a little bit, that it really helps us to bring it down into that parasympathetic, place where our brain functions better, our body functions better, our life is smoother when we're in that nice, calm parasympathetic state. So 7.5 minutes, I usually ask people to commit to 30 days because that 30 days is the cellular memory, muscle memory, where you can then go on a preventative and do, a couple times a week or event around an event or things like that, where the muscle memory just pops that right back. So that 30 days is important for just that muscle memory.
I love that you framed it as self-care. And I know I definitely probably spend more than 7.5 minutes in the evening. And it's actually on things that don't matter. I bought this, it's kind of funny. I bought a 20x mirror. Now, y'all, if you
Oh,
don't have a 20x mirror, oh my gosh. It was so scary. And I'm like, I am fairly certain this is not good for my mental health because
it's flaw seeking, right?
oh my gosh, and you get a little obsessed with it, like, you're looking
Mm,
in there going, "Oh, I never saw this. Oh, I never saw that." And I'm like, "Oh, this
yeah,
cannot be healthy." And I
yeah.
really got it just so, you get that eyesight thing as you age even
Yes,
with your glasses. So I'm like, "Okay, I'm getting the 20x mirror so that there's not some hidden hair
yes.
or
Yeah,
something
yes,
on my
exactly.
face."
Where I can actually get rid of that chin hair, right?
Oh my gosh, but it wasn't good for my mental health in a sense because it did make me looking at that X image of me did make me feel older.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's the self-care definitely it's important, but I also think you bring up a good point as well, which is that what we're encouraged to do is not always self-love and self-care, but more self-criticism and negativity. And I think that we could definitely, work at shifting that to self-love, positive affirmations. I want women to wake up and look in the mirror and think to themselves, I don't need makeup today, and go out into
Mm.
the world feeling that, empowered being of just knowing that they feel good and look good. Because when you can turn back the hands of time naturally, like with a natural facelift, people do say that. I rarely wear makeup and I intentionally come to the table with anything, but I wear eyeliner because that's also something that tends to thin, but I intentionally try not to wear any makeup on my skin because I just want transparency when I'm communicating that we should be taking care of ourselves and making sure that we actually are, doing what we need to do.
Absolutely. Now, I'm assuming just to kind of shift gears here a little bit, this isn't going to work well if somebody doesn't put the right lifestyle habits in place. So for instance, if they're doing their routine and then they have and this is not a judgment. I used to
Yeah.
love my glass of wine in the evening. I no longer drink alcohol for many, many different reasons. And one of them is it does. It makes us red. It makes us puffy. It makes us inflamed. Or if we eat foods that I feel that what we eat, what we drink is really going to come through onto our skin.
Yes. Yeah. No, I do agree with that, lifestyle is a huge part of it. It's kind of like the concept of, on every diet application, they encourage you say, and works well if you, eat well and
Mhm.
exercise. It's like, well, no kidding. Right. So I do think that overall lifestyle, walking that line of a holistic healthcare is going to give you the best possible results that you can get. However, in the clinical trial with women who were not asked to change anything in their lifestyle were definitely not women who were specific, into the holistic care. It was more of a rural location, so that there was a lot of diversity in the professions even, and the results were still there. If you want the absolute best results, lifestyle makes a difference, especially long term. And that's the whole point of why we make the changes we do. Is as human beings in the human condition, we want immediate gratification. It can be very difficult to think long term when we're thinking about application of food or skincare or anything that has to do with what you do today makes a difference, not only tomorrow or in 30 days, but actually make a difference in 10 years and in 20 years. And that's the harder part to kind of really grasp onto. And it takes time, right? When I was really sick and I had to learn how to eat differently, I know that it's a process. I knew how I was supposed to eat at the time, but I had cravings, right? Like I was a salt and dairy craving person, and I would make that choice. And I would say, and I do that still today. I'm going to eat this dairy and I'm going to, eat this really salty food like potato chips and dip, right? And I know I'm going to pay for it tomorrow, but I'm willing to do that. And just became very conscious of the parallel, like you said, of what you do, how you feel, right? And I became very conscious of that parallel so that I was making a conscious choice. So when I made a conscious choice, I could say, maybe not this time, because I really don't want to feel bad tomorrow morning. I do really want to have energy tomorrow morning. I do want to really wake up and just go. And so even today, I may make those conscious decisions where, I want to eat something that I know is not typically, healthy. And maybe it's French fries, right? So if I make that choice, I make that choice on a conscious level.
I love it. And you brought up such an important point, and it took away a lot of the overwhelm for people, I think, is there's a lot of pressure, and especially right now, because we have a lot of information, which is great. We've never had so much information as what we
Mm-hmm.
have now. We have AI, we have coaches, we have coaches on social media and beauty experts and health experts, all of the things right at our fingertips, this information, but it's overwhelming. And
Right,
few of us are ready to do everything at once. And
right.
I think of myself, a lot of my habits have taken me years, a decade to
Mm-hmm.
put into
Absolutely.
place.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't
Right.
overnight.
No. And those expectations are just setting us up for failure. So to not set us up for failure, but what I refer to more as like the correct and continue, acknowledge it, recognize it, let it go, and move forward. So I agree
Yes.
with you.
Yes. And it's data points. So when you eat the thing that I do it too. Sometimes I just want something and have something, and I'm like, I know full well it's not the best choice. Like, I don't know, for me, it's like a pancake for whatever reason. Every once in a while, I got to have a pancake.
Right. It's like grilled cheese sandwich. It's that comfort food, right?
Yeah, it's just, and we all have our little things, but we do it, eyes open. And then if we do have a reaction, like I have a lot of clients that will get the rosacea or a rash
Yeah.
from the dairy or gluten. See that a
Yeah.
lot. I just tell them it's a data point. Where you just kind of learn something, what should we do differently? Or, what can we change, or what can we replace this dairy food with? Is there another option? And just look
Mm-hmm.
at it like data and move on. You've learned something about yourself, your skin, your health, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's not the end of
Yeah.
the world. Now, what about we've been talking about the face. Do you address the whole body? Because I know that
Yes.
sounds overwhelming.
No, I know, right? I do. So I have let's see, I have I have a body stone, and what it is it's imprinted with frequencies to repair the lymphatic system in the fascia. But it's actually a sculpting stone because when you use it with the protocol, you're actually dumping the toxins, and then you're correcting the underlying tissue that is preventing the fascia from releasing and the collagen from producing and the lymphatic system from delivering it and the cells from being able to use it. So the sidekick on it, which is the benefit part in most of our lives is that it actually resculpts the calves, the butt, that arm, the sagging under the arm, the
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And creping and thinning, where I can absolutely see when I'm using my skincare protocol with the body lotion, which is actually a molecular band-aid. The formula for that is just so amazing. And if I'm using that and I forget one place like for weeks, like sometimes when we put lotion on our arms, we put lotion on the top of our arms. We sometimes don't put it underneath towards
Yes.
our armpit or right in front of where our armpit is. Right now we're in tank top season, right? And you'll look in the mirror and you go, what is going on in this underarm area by my armpit? Right. So you can actually see where we're gathered on that congestion. So you just make sure you just add that in next time.
You're right about that. I'll use myself as an example again. Having the surgery, he had to cut at the
Mm,
bicep. Well, something I didn't realize, it's like instantaneously you lose your bicep. I mean, it's not like gradual, like, oh, I have a little atrophy. It's like instantaneous when those cuts occur surgically.
amazing. Amazing.
And, I've really never had an issue with crepiness of the arms because of the muscle. I've had enough muscle to counteract that. And all of a sudden, the one arm, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like an old lady arm. What has just happened? Now it's coming back because I'm using bands and all of the things. But it's
Sure.
funny, the cream, I started going, we need to get under here and up in this armpit. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I get a lot of questions from women about the crepey skin. And I think 60s is where you really start to see that happen.
Yeah, it can really be even at 40. Like if you think about it, you talk a lot about like menopause, and our hormone changes even starting in the 40s are already affecting our skin even if we don't see it
Yes.
or are consciously aware of it. But how many women have definitely seen their face change after giving birth? Right?
Yes.
You're right, because we're given, the natural hormones, Pitocin, that helps to relax the ligaments so that we can give birth. That's not as easily recouped as we think for some people. So we actually start seeing those changes even in the 40s, and we definitely start decreasing the amount of collagen production, especially with traumas and injuries and things like that, where, these 50s, 60s, 60s, it starts looking like more the adverse effect of a couple of decades of, thinning skin and creping, condition and sunspots and things like that.
Even though it seems overnight, like you just
It
wake up one
does.
morning, like with
Yeah.
my surgery, I'm like, what did he do to me? But yeah, I do get a lot of questions on that. The sagging, the bagging knees, all of those
Mhm.
things really bother women. And again, it's not about trying to look like we did at 25, but to look the best that we can look at every age and decade of life.
Agreed. I agree with that. And I do think that there is more that we can do naturally, that we don't just have to accept it like a aged suit, right? We can actually recreate ourselves. Yeah.
I love it. I love the message, the conversation. It's good to hear some different alternatives because so many of us we look for that cream. I've done it. It comes across
Mhm.
Instagram. I'm like, I'll click on that and see what that miracle product's going to do for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm really happy to have had a chance to kind of really unpack that as well, because it's a big topic, and it's a topic that a lot of people don't talk about, and I really am appreciative of the opportunity to be able to chat about it.
Thank you, Kathy. As we're wrapping up, I want to be respectful of your time. Was there something I didn't hit on you'd like the listener to know, and how can they learn more about you?
Okay. So I think that, we hit on such great points on, lifestyle and things like that. And hydration is always important. I'm sure you talk a lot about that because the cells actually need hydration to plump. And I think that those are important things as far as like the skin, and the cells and things. But I think ultimately, I think that, my bottom line, my point, my mission, what I would really love to see happen is I would love to see the message change in our current beauty industry to really seeing a lot more acceptance of the process of our own personal experiences in life showing up not only in our wisdom but potentially in our body, both in our affect and our face, and have it be celebrated and not something that's like, oh, that's not good. It is good. It's who we are. I mean, how much do you find that when you get to know someone and you go, oh my God, I really love this person, is because you love who they are when you can really feel them in their transparent and vulnerable state.
Yes, the essence of who they actually are.
Exactly.
And then rather than thinking of things like flaws, like, hey, we've made it this far. Where there was a time where women didn't live past menopause very far, if at all.
Right.
And here we
Right.
are in a time where it's accessible for us and we can share our gifts and our wisdom. So why not feel good about
Yeah.
this whole process?
Right.
How can women work with you, learn more about what you do, Kathy?
Well, I have a website that really helps to kind of navigate you through the body part or the face part. And that's trueenergyskincare.com forward slash or backward, backslash you. So true is TRU energy, ENERGY, skincare.com/YOU. And that'll help people to navigate through the process. And I do webinars every month and communicate that way as well. So that's how you
Wonderful.
can find us.
Thank you. I'll make sure all of this is in the show notes. It has been an absolute pleasure to connect with you, Kathy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.